Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Woodlock, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer at ICL, one of the larger human service agencies here in New York City. We are really very honored to have Mayor DeBlasio and Attorney General Schneiderman here with us today at our Stepping Stone residence. We are excited about our plans to substantially rehabilitate this existing site, adding new supportive and affordable housing right here in Boerum Hill. The proposed project here at 50 Nevin Street will result in new units of supported housing that are so desperately needed throughout New York City. This whole area of downtown Brooklyn is coming alive with new residential and commercial development, and ICL is proud to be part of this resurgence. Our mission is to make sure that formerly homeless, disabled, and even extremely low-income individuals and their families can continue to be a part of this wonderful neighborhood. And we're committing the redevelopment of 50 Nevin Street towards that goal. As Mayor DeBlasio has said, we're striving towards knitting communities together. Thank you to Councilmember Stephen Levin, Assemblymember Joanne Simon, Senator Velmanette Montgomery, Public Advocate Letitia James, and Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams for all of the wonderful support that you've given ICL over the years. Together, we're making Brooklyn stronger than ever. I'd also like to welcome my colleague, John Kateris, Executive Director of HANAC Youth Services, an agency committed to providing essential social services for the betterment of communities across New York City. And you'll hear from ICL resident Joanna Spinelli, who tell her story of recovery, strength, and pride. ICL's trauma-informed and recovery-oriented services have been helping people in Brooklyn for nearly 30 years. Our efforts are ongoing, and projects just like this one will ensure that we'll be part of the Brooklyn landscape for many years to come, offering supportive services, affordable housing, and the like. Ladies and gentlemen, the mayor of our great city, Bill DeBlasio. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. I want to thank you. I want to thank everyone at the Institute for Community Living for all you do for so many New Yorkers. People have struggles, and you meet them, support them, help them move forward, and it means so much to all of us. Let's give a big round of applause to the Institute for Community Living and all they do. I want to thank all of the advocates, all of the wonderful organizations that are here, all the community members who are here today. I want to thank two members of my administration, our HPD Commissioner Vicki Bean and the Chief of Special Services at HRA, Dan Teets. Thank you both for being here. And this is an example today of real cooperation between different parts of government and common cause, because the ultimate goal is to make people whole, to give them a place they can live, to give them a place they can move forward. And it does take a village. It takes all of us working together to do that. I've had the tremendous honor of working closely with our Attorney General, Eric Schneiderman. We have partnered many a time in common cause, and we started in 2014 with the particular notion of going after some bad actors who had gotten away with too much, some unscrupulous landlords who had taken advantage of their tenants, taken advantage of their workers, and for too long got away with it because there wasn't that kind of strong and creative enforcement. There wasn't the kind of common purpose between city and state to get this done. These are landlords who did something particularly reprehensible. They took the taxpayers' money, they took tax breaks, and then broke all the rules that were supposed to go along with those tax breaks. Well, I can say about the Attorney General that when he sees a bad actor, when he sees someone breaking the law, he is relentless, he's creative, and he finds a way to make a difference. And we've gotten some real results because of the Attorney General's great work and the work we've been honored to do with him. Last December, 128 landlords, it's a really striking figure, 128 landlords, were compelled to return over 1,800 apartments that had gone to market rate, that were no longer within the reach of everyday New Yorkers, they were compelled to return them to rent stabilization and make those apartments affordable again. Think about that. 1,800 apartments, 1,800 families will get affordable housing now in apartments that we thought were gone forever. They were going to be market rate. We'd never see them again for people of more limited means. But because of the Attorney General, 1,800 more apartments for the people of this city. Let's thank him for that. Well, then we all worked together. There was 23 more property owners who were, in part of getting their tax breaks, they were supposed to provide rent-stabilized leases, and they didn't. They were supposed to provide fair wages to their building workers, and they didn't. So the Attorney General went after them as well. And these building owners who did the wrong thing, they've been caught. And for their trouble, they have been made to pay nearly $10 million in penalties. Another victory, and we thank you. But it gets better because that money now can go to a particularly important purpose, which is creating more apartments for people who need them the most, our seniors and folks who need supportive housing. So over 4 different developments across the city, 600 families will be accommodated. Folks who have been homeless, including our homeless veterans, New Yorkers with mental health challenges, low-income seniors, all sorts of people in need will be accommodated in these apartments. And 130 of them will be right here in the supportive apartments that will rise behind us at Stepping Stone Residences. Now, we believe in supportive housing deeply. We believe it's one of the things we've needed a lot more of in this city. I'm very proud of the fact that this administration is committed to 15,000 supportive apartments over the next 15 years. And you're going to see it happen right here, and the difference it makes in people's lives is extraordinary. It gives people a chance to really turn their lives around. It's something that is a moral obligation. It's also the right thing to do from every measure. You can't ask people to simply figure out a path without the help they need. And you're going to hear from Joanna in a few minutes, and she's going to tell you what it meant in her life to have a supportive apartment and what that allowed her to do. And I really want to thank her for being here so you can hear firsthand how much this means. Everyone who needs support deserves it. That's our goal, to always reach every New Yorker we can. That's what animates our supportive housing initiative. That's what animates our plan for 200,000 affordable apartments. That's why we've put forward 2 pieces of legislation before the City Council. And the mandatory inclusionary zoning bill would be the most progressive affordable housing policy anywhere in the country. It would require developers to create affordable housing in a way that's never been done before in the history of this country. It would be the toughest and most stringent rules requiring affordable housing as a condition of new development in many parts of this city. And we're excited about that and what it will mean for people who need affordable housing in this city. And that's on top of the 1 million rent-regulated apartments that got a rent freeze this year. That's on top of the 10-fold increase in legal aid and legal services to help stop evictions. I'm very proud to say, we reported this a couple of weeks ago, evictions by city marshals are down 24% over the last 2 years because that legal aid is working. So we've got a lot to do. We've got a lot to do. We have to do all of these things at once to preserve and protect affordable housing, to update our laws so we can build more, to make the investments. But a crucial part of this equation is making sure that everyone who makes a deal with the people of New York City knows that that deal has to be kept, that the Attorney General is watching, that tax breaks are not giveaways, but they come with obligations, that people have to treat their tenants right, have to treat their workers right. And I'm going to say a few words in Spanish before I introduce the Attorney General, but I have to say, when you see that there are really teeth behind the enforcement of the law, when bad actors see other folks being hit with these penalties, it sends a very powerful message that people have to do the right thing or suffer the consequences. Quickly in Spanish, la ciudad y el Estado han llevado a juicio a caseros por violar derechos de los inquilinos. Hoy me complace anunciar que vamos a usar $10 millones obtenidos en esos casos para crear casi 600 apartamentos con servicios de apoyo para personas sin hogar, veteranos sin hogar y ancianos de pocos recursos. Esa es una de las formas en que luchamos para que Nueva York siga siendo una ciudad para todos. And someone who believes in a city for all and uses the powers of his role as Attorney General to reinforce that every day and make sure that people have their rights protected, our Attorney General, Eric Schneiderman.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you. This is catching bad guys is good, but solving problems to help good people is better.
Amen.
And I really want to thank the housing mayor, Bill DeBlasio, my other colleagues in government, my colleagues in housing activists, builders, creative public servants in nonprofits, former Assistant Attorney General Letitia James. This is really represents another step in the most aggressive, coordinated effort to deal with New York's housing crisis that I think the city has ever seen. We are facing an unprecedented crisis, but we are dealing with it with an unprecedented set of programs, policies, coordinated, multifaceted approach that is going to keep producing results for the people of this city. Millions of New Yorkers can't afford housing. Millions of New Yorkers are struggling with that. There are drawn-out foreclosure proceedings that people are facing. Tenants are really facing difficult situations all across the city. It is a statewide crisis, and it really, in a lot of respects, is a national crisis. But the real estate market here has never been hotter, and it's up to those of us in government to ensure that while people are building and making money, all of the people of the city, all of the stakeholders in this great city, all of the people who make this growth possible are able to share in it, and that people are able to live and raise their families and work. Many homeowners who lost their homes in the crash of the economy and couldn't buy new homes started looking for rental housing, and obviously that's a challenge. We have, under the federal standards, we have well over half of the people in the city who are paying more than they can afford under the federal guidelines. And it does take extra effort and extra creativity to keep this the city for working people, a city that is socially and economically integrated. That is the strength and the joy of the city. And the people you see here and all of the other folks who are a part of this are working hard to keep that dream alive and make that true. So I'm very proud to be here today. Because, as the mayor noted, for several years, my office has been investigating unscrupulous building owners, developers, landlords who've been abusing the law to take millions in tax exemptions from programs like 421A, and we have collected a lot of money from those developers and landlords. We also, as the mayor noted, got over 1,800 apartments back on the rolls as rent-regulated apartments. We did get wages for workers who had been stiffed out of the proper pay. Folks who abuse the law in one area frequently abuse the law in other areas, and it's very important that we enforce the law for the sake of the city, but also for the sake of all of the honorable business people who are actually playing by the rules. And when they take a tax break, they follow the rules, and they put apartments into rent regulation when they're required to do it. So we're not going to allow folks to take tax exemptions that are meant to benefit hardworking New Yorkers and produce the kind of city that we can all live in, and let people line their pockets with it and then not provide the benefits they're legally required to do. So a lot of the developers that we settle with started out to build condominiums, and then with the housing crash, they turned a lot of those apartments into rentals. or extended stay hotels. And under the law, if they do that, they have to make sure these apartments are covered by rent regulations and other tenant protections. Instead, the folks whose money we are happily spending here today, or the money they took from us that we are getting back to spend today, they chose to pocket the money and deprive the residents of the rent-regulated apartments that they were supposed to have. So, again, this is a part of a multifaceted approach that has us more aggressively pursuing people who abuse tenants than we ever have before in a better coordinated way, state, city, nonprofit sector, all working together. We are determined to not just recoup every dollar we can, but to ensure that it is spent intelligently, is spent through for great programs like this that actually will provide the benefits that the developers and landlords were supposed to provide in the first place. The proceeds of our settlements go into what's called the Affordable Housing Fund. We have collected in our office about almost $10 million in it, and now we're starting to spend it. But this is something that we view as an ongoing process. And I have to say that ICL here in Brooklyn is just a great example. If you want to know why we work so hard to enforce the law and why we work to ensure that there is a better way to do things and why the mayor has been a tireless advocate for more aggressive, creative approaches to tackling the housing project, this 129-unit project is going to be a great example of what we can do together, what we will all continue to do together, whether it is our joint tenant harassment prevention task force, whether it is our efforts that we've involved in to move funds that I recover from the banks that were involved in creating the crash of the housing market, into legal services, housing counseling, the work that the city is doing to to hold everyone accountable, make sure everyone plays by the rules, and make sure that everyone in the city of New York has the opportunity for a fair shot in life. We're not guaranteeing success, but you need to be able to have a decent place to live. You need to have safety in your home and on your streets. You need to have a good school. This is just the basic American compact. If you work hard, you play by the rules, you try and make your way as best you can, we're going to make sure you have a fair shot. And we're going to make sure everyone pays their fair share. And as long as I'm the Attorney General and Bill DeBlasio is the mayor, we're going to work to make sure there's one set of rules for everyone. Thank you very much.
I'd like to bring up former Assistant Attorney General, now public advocate in New York City, and she certainly fights hard for tenants and working people every day. Public advocate Tish James.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I want to first thank ICL for hosting us. And I want to thank ICL for believing in second chances and for never underestimating the power of the human spirit. And for all of the tenants who reside here, who have survived challenges in their lives. One less thing you have to worry about is an affordable home, and this place provides that. As the former city council member who represented the other side of Flatbush Avenue, I've worked with Councilmember Levin, and he and I and Senator Velmanette Montgomery and all the elected officials, Assemblywoman Joanne Simon. We have worked in this district to try to prevent displacement and homelessness. And I am so glad, and I want to thank Attorney General Schneiderman and, of course, Mayor DeBlasio for their hard work in making today's announcement possible. The crisis in affordable housing continues to plague this city, and it continues to be the #1 complaint to the Office of Public Advocate. And those affected most by the crisis are our city's most vulnerable: the mentally ill, the homeless, veterans, and senior citizens. And that is why today $10 million in investment could not come soon enough. The money which comes from bad actors who have broken the law will fund hundreds of units of supportive housing that will go right to New Yorkers who are struggling the most. Using restitution to address the needs of New Yorkers is a wise, smart, and a just investment. And so I want to make sure that, working with the mayor and the attorney general, that we ensure that we do not leave any community behind, and that we all grow strong when we all grow together, and that we work to ensure that the most vulnerable have the resources that they need. And I look forward to working with the Mayor of the City of New York, Bill DeBlasio, and Attorney General Schneiderman to bring bad actors to justice and to promote the creation of true affordable housing, to prevent homelessness, and to prevent displacement in the City of New York. Today is a great day for justice. Thank you.
The work that's been done to really change the approach to supportive housing, to make sure we had the kind of supportive housing we needed, the numbers of apartments we needed to actually serve the people of this city. Well, so much of that started in the legislature. And you'll remember months and months ago, members of the legislature really stepped up and said affordable housing, and specifically supportive housing, has to be one of the most important things that gets done this year. And they put the issue on the map in a particularly powerful way. So I'd like to bring forward two members of the legislature to speak. First, Senator Velmanette Montgomery, and second, Assemblymember Joanne Simon.
Good afternoon. I want to just say that this is really one unusually happy opportunity. And thank you, Mayor DeBlasio, for coming to Brooklyn. You've come to the right place, the exact right time.
Always the right place.
Welcome. He lives here, by the way. He used to live here. And I want to thank our Attorney General. When he was a senator, we worked together. He has had this vision for a very long time. And we thank you for your leadership for all these years. And let me say that we're sitting in the middle of the worst, I guess you can say, that's how I view it, the worst gentrified part of the city. And so what we're talking about here today is my neighbors here at 50 Nevins know we've watched these wonderful buildings going up, but we know that none of us will be able to afford to live there, basically. And we have the executive director of the YWCA, where that's the other part of my home. It's where my office is located, that houses over 300 women in really affordable housing. The executive director is here, Martha Camber. Thank you, Martha, for your vision and the vision of the Y. So we are really trying very desperately to hold on to the vision that New York should be for all of us. One New York is what we aspire to support. And so this really helps us to hold on to that. And so we thank all of the leaders here, and especially Mayor DeBlasio. And we will continue to do all that we can in the state legislature to support what you're trying to do here in the city, and that is to make it possible for One New York to really be realized. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Assemblymember Joanne Simon.
Good afternoon. I'm just delighted. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Attorney General, Madam Public Advocate, former Assistant Attorney General, Letitia James. All of the advocates, my fellow legislators, Senator Montgomery and Councilmember Levin. I'm just delighted to be here. This is my neighborhood. This is where I've lived for 35 years. I know it when it was not such an up-and-coming neighborhood. And the people here at 50 Nevins has been part of our community for many, many years. And I'm very excited to be part of this effort to increase supported housing. It's something I have supported for years, and we in the state legislature worked very, very hard last year to fund supported housing in New York City and throughout the state. And it's an effort that continues with very serious anti-poverty thinking and policy making that we will be continuing to roll out in the State Assembly. And I'm just very delighted to have been part of that and to have fought hard for this. So I'm very delighted that we're here today to announce something really positive for real New Yorkers who need our help and are part of our community. And we want to make sure that everybody knows they are welcome, and we will work very hard with you to ensure that this is a successful project. Thank you.
Thank you. Here in the City Council, the strongest voice for supportive housing has been the chair of the General Welfare Committee, and it's a committee I know and love. And I really admire the vigor and the strength that Steve Levin's shown as chair of that committee, and he was one of the key figures in ensuring that we got to the biggest supportive housing goal this city has ever had. He gets a lot of credit for it, and he represents the community. Council member Steve Levin.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor. I want to thank my friends at ICL, David and Carmen, and the whole team here at ICL for hosting today. I want to acknowledge my friend Martha Camber from the YWCA, who has done such great work in providing affordable housing in downtown Brooklyn, Commissioner Bean, and my colleagues in the state legislature, Senator Montgomery, Assemblywoman Simon, of course, former Deputy Attorney General Letitia James, and to our great Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, and obviously to you, Mr. Mayor, and your team. This is testament to what vision and hard work can do. We know what our challenges are in New York City. You all can hear it. There's construction going on within earshot of where we are today. That's happening all over downtown Brooklyn in the district that I'm blessed to be able to represent. But we have to make sure that everybody's able to share in those benefits, in that prosperity. And that's what today is all about. This dedication from the Attorney General and working with the city on a robust supportive housing plan, and that being illustrated by the efforts here today. This is what's going to make our generation's stamp on New York City, on confronting the affordability challenges that we have in New York City. Talk is cheap. Talk is cheap, and we can talk about it, these challenges all we want, but unless we're willing to collectively step up to the plate and meet those challenges with resources, real resources, like this administration has done on supportive housing over the last several months, 15,000 units of supportive housing, that's what's going to make a real impact here. And that's what we have to do. We have to continue to keep our eye on the ball, but I just really want to applaud the Attorney General for his dedication in seeking justice and restitution for those bad actors that have taken advantage of low-income New Yorkers. And I want to thank the mayor for his vision in bringing affordable housing to all New Yorkers. Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, we saved the best for last because it's important. That's you. It's important. It's important to understand what this means in the most human terms, because this is what all of us come here to do, to help every New Yorker to realize their potential, to overcome challenges, and to give them what they deserve, which is a helping hand. And so many people, when they get that helping hand, they turn their lives around. And I also always say thank you when someone's willing to talk about their story. It's not always easy, but they do a great service to the world in talking about what they've been through, because it gives heart to so many other people. So, Joanna Stinelli, that is you who is stepping up to the plate today, and we thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Joanna Stinelli. There you go.
Thank you. Okay, let's put my glasses on.
Got it, okay.
Put that
Yeah,
up there
I'm
like
going to get this out of your way.
Sorry.
This will make it easier.
Yeah,
There you
thank
go.
you. Hello, everyone. My name is Joanna Spinelli. I live in a one-bedroom apartment in Park Slope through ICL Supportive Housing Program. Many years ago, I was diagnosed with depression and bipolar disorder. I was hospitalized, and my 3 children went to live with my dad. Eventually, I was discharged from the hospital and went to live in a shelter. I entered a system I didn't understand, one where I thought I had no one to turn to. But I found people who cared a lot about what happened to me. I started out in a housing program, and by going to a day treatment program and counseling, and then adding a job, I got myself stabilized and ready to take on the next chapters in my life. Where am I? Sorry.
That's all right.
In fact, I became a peer leader. I learned that everyone has a story to tell, and telling can help people gain strength and control over their lives. There are so many people in New York who need a lot of help, and so many of them end up in the street. I didn't want to do that. I knew I needed a warm and safe place to live, a roof over my head. ICL supportive housing was there for me. And it needs to be there for so many others. That's why this funding is so very important. The creation of more supported housing will create more safe places for people in need of help. I was able to go from being hospitalized to living on my own and being reunited with my children. Thanks to the care and assistance I get from supportive housing. Thank you.
You did great. You did. Yeah, I gotta give you a hug. You did great. That is really a beautiful story. Everyone wants to give you a hug. Thank you so much, Joanna. Thank you, and that is inspiring. And we're so happy for you, and we're so happy for your children as well. That is beautiful. Let's take questions on today's gathering, and then we'll be taking questions on some other matters in a few moments. But let's first see if there's questions about today's announcement. Yes?
Hi, good afternoon. How do you all collectively intend on sharing this knowledge and these resources on tenants' rights for maybe residents that are in the dark about it?
You want to start that?
No, they can start it. There is, as the mayor noted, there's really been an unprecedented investment in legal services, housing, counseling, and supportive programs to get the word out. But there still are a lot of people who are hesitant to come forward when they have a problem. We see this all the time, that folks who fall behind on their mortgage are having a problem with their landlord. So it really is a community-wide effort. We've got the resources, everything that you need to know. We're funding, my office is funding more than 100 housing, counseling, and legal service agencies across the state. The city has got more resources going into this than ever in history. So we're doing everything we can do to get the word out, but it really also is a neighbor-to-neighbor, community-wide effort, because it's not just a matter of getting the information, it's a matter of people being willing to talk about their problems. The mayor said it's hard to tell your story. There are a lot of folks who could get help are still hesitant to ask. We got to make sure that that changes, and this kind of an event, this kind of a program hopefully sends the message that if Joanna can tell her story, anybody can. Thank you.
Amen. Amen. And let me add to that some of the things we're talking about here, where landlords have treated their tenants unfairly. Now, because we have legal services available, now all it comes down to is calling 311. A lot of New Yorkers knew that if you weren't being given heat and hot water by your landlord, you could call 311. And that the city would make sure, thanks to everyone at HPD, that either the landlord fixed the problem or the city would fix the problem themselves and they'd build a landlord. But now we're able to say we can go farther than that. If you're being harassed by a landlord, if you're being faced with an illegal eviction, if you're not being given repairs you deserve, you can call 311 and have access to a lawyer. So the important thing to do is to report what you're going through and to tell us if a landlord is doing something wrong. That's really crucial, and I don't think in the past people realized that 311 was that tool, but now it is. Okay, on this topic. Yes.
Hi, I'm here from Republica. We've done a lot of reporting on rent civilization, and I was wondering if this was in the proper context. You say you've put back 1,800 apartments back to the rent civilization rules. We've estimated that there are at least 50,000 apartments not in the rules, just from tax programs, and then 200,000 missing from the 1 million figure that is usually given as the rent stabilized stock in the city. Then you say there's a rent freeze for 1 million New Yorkers, but 240,000 of them have preferential rents and therefore are not subject to...
Okay, you got a lot of pieces to the question. Let me take them let's take them one at a time. Don't worry.
Overall is, you're celebrating here something, but is it meaningful in the context it is in?
Absolutely. But look, I don't want to, and I want the Attorney General to speak to the beginning of your question about what we can do to go at any other apartments that are being misclassified that are not stabilized and should be stabilized. And I bet Vicki has something to say, too, about our efforts. Look, maturity is the ability to keep two contradictory thoughts in mind at the same time. We know that we still lose too many affordable apartments legally, and we have to compensate constantly by creating more affordable options. There are laws on the books in Albany that I hope someday we can change that will stop so many apartments from leaving affordability. But we also know that a lot of them are being illegally taken out of affordability, and that's where particularly the work of the Attorney General comes in. So we have to do more of that. Again, in the past, I would say the city and the state didn't combine forces the way they should have and didn't go aggressively enough at landlords. And we certainly didn't have the legal services available on this scale. So a lot is changing rapidly about much more enforcement. For the rent freeze, Vicki can speak to the preferential rent issue. We know that is a part of the landscape, but that does not for a moment take away the fact that for the first time in 45 years there was a rent freeze. And that was because the Rent Guidelines Board actually looked at the real numbers of what landlords' costs were and said, wait a minute, there's no justification for an increase. And that was a sea change for this city. So lots and lots to do, but those are real indicators of progress. Let me turn to the Attorney General and then to Commissioner Bean.
Yeah, no, I don't have much to add to that. This is obviously an ongoing process. The 1,800 apartments are specific to the projects that we recoup money from that are supporting this construction and the other construction. So it is a piece of the puzzle. It is a step forward. It's not the first step, and it certainly won't be the last. Commissioner.
Thanks. If I can just add to that, when we came into office, we realized that there was a problem. It was a structural problem in the way that 421A and some other tax incentives were structured, that a developer could start to get benefits as they started construction, but they didn't need to register until they actually finished, and there was no check on that. We changed that structurally so that in the new 421A that was passed in last June, you do not get those benefits until you actually have constructed the apartment and register it in rent regulations. So we've closed that loophole. This is the beginning of an investigation. We're working very hard with the Attorney General's office to try to fill the entire scope of the problem, and we will be going after it in that way. In terms of your question about preferential rents, we were up in Albany, along with so many people around this parking lot, trying to get better protections on preferential rents. We'll continue to do that. It's a very serious problem, and we'll continue to work with our partners in Albany to reform that.
Okay, we're still on this topic. Anything on affordable housing? Yes, Sally?
Other sources of funding for these units, for these 600 units, like either from the state or other?
So for these other 4 units and 4 buildings and for others that will be funded out of this, we are putting together financing packages. Of course, we work with the state to come up with the most efficient financing package. It's still all being developed.
All right, last call on topic. Yes.
Any specific details on the governor's housing plan and how that will dovetail with this?
No, we are awaiting details on all of the affordable housing elements and homeless housing elements of that plan. We're particularly interested, obviously, in how the state will go about creating the supportive housing to match our commitment. But we still haven't seen those details and assume they will be part of the upcoming budget process over the next few weeks.
Briefed on what it might mean for the city?
Well, again, we haven't seen the details. We've certainly requested that we be briefed as soon as they are available, but they have not been made available yet.
As you know, next week the Senate and Assembly will pass their one-house budget resolutions, which are really just a statement of priorities. But I've heard very little chatter in Albany about 421A, about the goals. You know, it quietly expired 2 months ago after having been on the books for 40 years. The Senate might not even include it. And I'm just wondering if you're hearing any discussions about that. Are you concerned about that? Isn't that an important part of the next step in building more affordable housing?
Yeah, look, I was disappointed in the previous process because it didn't yield a resolution. And the 421A program absolutely needed reform. It wasn't functioning properly in terms of being fair to taxpayers. It wasn't creating enough affordable housing, and it was subsidizing luxury housing. It made no sense. But the idea wasn't to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but to reform it, which is what we proposed. And I want to thank Vicki Bean, who did a lot of hard work on this issue. I think there's a lot of awareness in Albany that this is part of how we create affordable housing. But there's also a keen awareness that the program, as it was before, cannot continue. It only can continue with serious reform, and that'll take some hard work. So I think it's on everyone's minds. I have no idea whether it will show up in the one-house bills. But I do think there's a lot of consciousness of the fact that without action, a certain amount of affordable housing will keep waiting and can't be built. And I'll tell you one thing, I say it everywhere I go, and ask any elected official, there's no issue that generates more concern and more passion from the people in New York City than affordable housing. So I think folks up in Albany have to think long and hard about that, because a lot of affordable housing is waiting on them. Yeah.
Do you have a sense of when you think the zoning discussions with the city council will wrap up? And is there a floor on how low the city will go for AMI?
Well, I'm obviously not in the middle of the detailed conversations. We've put forward a plan that we think really makes sense. The council has raised concerns, very, very respectful, very good dialogue throughout. We've said all along we'd try and see if we could reach some of the concerns that the council has had. But that's a series of conversations that are ongoing. I think things are moving well, and we do expect the process to move forward in the very near term. Last call on affordable housing, anything related to today? Okay, I want to thank, oh, wait, this is today? This is this one, I should say? This is still today. Okay, it is still today, I'm here to report. I want to thank the Attorney General and everyone's a part of this announcement for all you're doing. Great victory today. Thank you, everyone.